Robert Lynch shares how the arts play a vital role in addressing community issues.
When you say that New Mexico is a weather vane for the arts, what do you mean?
New Mexico is a place that has invested in the arts in a variety of ways, and the rest of the country can learn from New Mexico and has learned from New Mexico. The variety includes art that is of the community and for the community, indigenous art from the Native American cultures that are here, art from various ethnic groups, the Hispanic culture, for example, the building of institutions that's also here, the opera companies and stage companies, and you put all of that together with also a very, very viable both nonprofit and for-profit commercial gallery culture in places like Santa Fe, and you have a model of an arts economy that thrives here, and that other cities, other mayors, other city councils, other business leaders all across the country, they want that energy in their town. I think a lot of cities around the country, much larger than Santa Fe, or states bigger than New Mexico, have looked here for models of how they can do things better in their communities.
New Mexicans are proud that our identity is really tightly tied to the arts. Can you talk a little bit about what arts means to identity?
You know, there are many aspects to art, as we know. Sometimes people who haven't had a lot of arts experiences see only one of those aspects. So if somebody has really had the epiphany, experienced art in their lives, they feel differently about how they understand the world. They learn things through the arts about other cultures. They might be inspired to do something in another form of work because of the arts experience. Albert Einstein was an example of that. He said most of his great ideas came while he was playing the violin. And so I think that the value of the arts in people's lives, that's the inherent value at first. That's what the real meaning is. But then the arts are also something that has an economic impact, that creates jobs, that make for healthier communities, or are being used in hospitals. 50% of American hospitals today have the arts as part of the hospital programming because it helps the patients heal faster. It's not decorative, it's because there's a use to it. So the arts can go in many directions and help on many fronts in community.
How does arts make or create a place?
You know, you go into any town, almost any town in America or anywhere in the world, and you look where all the people are, where the shops are, where the restaurants are, and you'll find the arts there. You'll find a theater or a small gallery or a cluster of things that are happening in the arts that create that kind of vibrancy, that sense of place. That's one kind of place, and that's a sort of a destination for people to go and gather. The other is that when you add that up throughout community, throughout neighborhoods, and every neighborhood has that as well, you get a sense of the place of the whole community. So if you go to New Orleans, you have a sense of New Orleans as a place, and then you have a sense of many, many smaller places there. That's what you have here in New Mexico. New Mexico has this charm of a natural beauty. It has a charm of the design beauty of the buildings, also art. People forget that design is art.
Aesthetic, yes.
And then it has the beauty and the charm and the placemaking of the various art forms and arts institutions that are here as well.
How do arts make us better, or make our communities better?
You know, if you believe, as I believe, that the arts, if engaged, do things for the individual, like make you think differently and maybe think more broadly about that there are other people in the world besides you and your own needs. And then if you extend that to how we consume art, usually in community or in groups coming together, experiencing a situation with different kinds of people, different ideas, that's how communities are built. That's how successful communities are built, from the many threads and the straws. That I think that the arts are one of the most valuable tools to make that kind of connectivity happen. We talked about it as place before, but it's actually the very, very core of what community is.
There are those out there who will say, our money should be going towards police officers, our money should be going towards highway infrastructure. How do we convince them that the arts is as important, if not more?
What we need to convince people of is that what you're trying to do is create, in many ways, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, if you go all the way back to our founding fathers, but you're trying to create community. You're trying to create a good town, a good city. And you create a good town and a good city by having all of those things, not just one of those things or a couple of those things. So yeah, you need police, absolutely, and you need health services. But at the same time, you need joy, and you need the soul of the community. You need people in school to be nurtured with creativity. Through the arts is one of the best ways. And what we have to convince people of is that the arts are a partner in the solution to these other problems. Now, for example, with policing, there's studies all across the country, and Police Chiefs Association, I got to speak to them a number of years ago, that will absolutely tell you that cultural programs and arts programs with particularly kids at risk or out of school are one of the most effective and least expensive ways to cut back crime and cut back recidivism rates and so on. Same thing though, the hospital example that I mentioned is another aspect of community. We need health care. It's proven that 50% of the American hospitals use the arts because it helps with the healing process. So you can actually take that to almost any community issue. In fact, that's what we are spending a lot of time on these days, looking at community, looking at the 30 different, more probably, aspects of community that are community issues that might go from equity issues and race issues to issues that are of a more economic nature, and how can and study how the arts do help solve as partners all of those problems.
What do you love most about your job, about what you get to do on behalf of artists in this country?
I love it when we are able to make a decision maker see the world, see the arts, see support for the arts differently. You know, that might not sound, it's not the same joy as sitting there and hearing and consuming a great piece of art. But moving blinders from the eyes of somebody who just didn't get it before is a real thrill. The very first time it happened for me was over 30 years ago. It was in Massachusetts, and I was working with the then governor. I was an advocate. He was the governor, Governor King. And he was a conservative, and he had decided to eliminate the state funding for the arts. And no inherent value argument could work with him. But we brought in one of the very first economic impact studies, and he looked at it, and he said, if this is true, I am not going to eliminate the budget, I'm going to increase it, and he did. And at that moment I realized there's other ways to get to decision makers and leaders, and my job is to get to them so that the dollars will flow, so that the arts can flow, and that communities can enjoy the arts and be supported. And you know what's great is we're seeing that happen all across the country with some 100,000 nonprofit arts organizations today that exist, and some 5,000 local arts agencies that we work with that serve them and fund them. So I'm excited by that kind of thing.
So what is your message for New Mexico?
My first message from New Mexico is that I'm here to learn from New Mexico. New Mexico has answers, and I want to know what New Mexico thinks about community development through the arts and how the arts can be advanced. But my thought for New Mexico and for the nation is that the arts are America's best kept secret. It's a secret weapon for solving all of the other communities' issues that we face today. It's not the answer, it's a partner in the answer. We need to make the secret weapon less secret, and if we do it right, the return on that investment is a better child, a better town, a better nation, and a better world.